You have heard that it was said, money is the root of all evil. But I tell you, money is not the root of all evil, rather the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Welcome to the podcast, where we explore the relationship between money and morality. In this episode, we're going to clarify a commonly misquoted Bible verse and discuss how the love of money, not money itself, is the root of all kinds of trouble and evil. This is an issue that has been debated and discussed for centuries, and it continues to be relevant today. As we explore the topic, we'll look at the root causes of the love of money, the consequences it brings, and how it relates to godliness and contentment. We'll also discuss the teachings of the Apostle Paul and Jesus on the topic and consider how they apply to our lives today. This famous quote from the Bible, often misquoted as "money is the root of all evil," highlights the danger of greed and the love of money. The correct version, "the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil," clarifies that wealth itself is not inherently bad, but rather the excessive desire for it can lead to various forms of moral corruption and harm. In his letter to Timothy, the Apostle Paul warns against false teachers who manipulate doctrine for financial gain and encourages godliness with contentment as the true source of gain. The love of money can drive individuals to commit crimes and acts of injustice, and the Bible likens it to idolatry. Jesus also taught about the dangers of wealth and challenged the rich young ruler to let go of his material possessions and follow him. Ultimately, it is important to prioritize godliness and contentment over the pursuit of material wealth. The misquotation implies that money itself is inherently evil and that any involvement with it is likewise evil. However, the correct version emphasizes that it is the love of money that can drive individuals to commit all kinds of wrongdoing, including but not limited to crimes like theft, fraud, and exploitation of others for financial gain. It is not money itself, but the attachment and idolization of it that can lead to sin and harm. The full quote from the Bible is, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." 1 Timothy 6 verse 10. This means that it is not money itself that is the root of all evil, but rather the love of it. When people become obsessed with acquiring wealth and material possessions, it can lead them to make unethical decisions or harm others in pursuit of their financial goals. However, money can also be used for good purposes and to help others, so it is important to have a healthy relationship with it and use it wisely. The love of money can be defined as an excessive attachment or desire for wealth and material possessions. This attitude can lead to negative consequences in various aspects of life, including personal relationships, ethical decision-making, and mental health. One of the roots of the love of money can be traced back to our culture and societal norms. In many societies, financial success and wealth are highly valued and equated with happiness and success. This can create a pressure to accumulate wealth, even at the expense of other important aspects of life, such as personal relationships, health, and well-being. Another root of the love of money can be attributed to individual personality traits and psychological factors. For example, research suggests that individuals who have a strong need for control or who are highly competitive may be more prone to developing a love of money. Additionally, some individuals may use wealth and possessions as a way to boost their self-esteem or fill an emotional void. The consequences of the love of money can be significant. For example, individuals who prioritize money above other values may make unethical decisions in order to gain wealth, leading to a loss of trust and damaged relationships. Additionally, research suggests that the pursuit of wealth can contribute to stress, anxiety, and other mental health issues. To mitigate the negative consequences of the love of money, it is important to cultivate a healthy relationship with wealth and possessions. This may involve focusing on other important aspects of life, such as personal relationships, hobbies, and community involvement, rather than solely pursuing financial gain. Additionally, engaging in practices such as mindfulness and gratitude can help individuals to appreciate the non-material aspects of life and reduce the grip that the love of money may have on their lives. The Apostle Paul's quote on the love of money comes from 1 Timothy 6 verse 10 in the New Testament of the Bible. The verse reads, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. The key phrase in this verse is the love of money. It is not money itself that is the root of evil, but rather the excessive desire or love of it that leads to harmful behaviors and consequences. When people become consumed by the desire for wealth and possessions, they can become greedy, selfish, and willing to do unethical or immoral things to acquire money. The consequences of the love of money can be far-reaching and destructive. In addition to leading people away from their values or faith, it can also cause them to prioritize material possessions over relationships, health, and personal well-being. The pursuit of wealth can also lead to harmful behaviors such as fraud, theft, and corruption. Overall, Paul's quote is a warning about the dangers of putting too much emphasis on money and the importance of maintaining a balanced perspective on material possessions. The misquoted version of the quote is "Money is the root of all evil." This version implies that money itself is inherently evil, which is not what the Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to Timothy. The correct version of the quote is "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." This version acknowledges that it is not money itself that is the root of evil, but rather the excessive desire or love for money that can lead to various forms of wrongdoing and harm. By adding the word love to the quote, the Apostle Paul emphasizes the importance of our motivations and intentions in relation to money. He warns against becoming too attached or obsessed with money, as this can lead to greed, envy, dishonesty, and other negative behaviors that can harm ourselves and others. In summary, the correct version of the quote recognizes that money is not inherently evil, but rather the love of money, or an excessive attachment to it, can lead to various forms of harm and wrongdoing. The context of Paul's statement. The quote, "The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil," is found in the New Testament of the Christian Bible, specifically in the first letter to Timothy, chapter 6, verse 10. The letter is attributed to the Apostle Paul and is addressed to his young protege Timothy, who was serving as a leader in the church in Ephesus. In the passage, Paul is giving instructions to Timothy regarding how to conduct himself and how to address the members of his congregation. He warns against false teachers who promote false doctrines and those who seek to profit from their teachings. Paul encourages Timothy to focus on godliness and contentment, rather than the pursuit of wealth and material possessions. The specific quote about the love of money being a root of all kinds of evil comes in the context of Paul's warning against the dangers of pursuing wealth. He emphasizes that the love of money can lead people to wander away from the faith and bring many sorrows into their lives. Instead, he advises that people should be content with what they have and seek after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and gentleness. The broader context of the letter to Timothy includes discussions of various issues facing the early Christian church, including false teachings, the roles of men and women in the church, and the qualifications for church leaders. Throughout the letter, Paul emphasizes the importance of living a godly life and adhering to sound doctrine, rather than getting caught up in worldly concerns. Overview of Paul's letter to Timothy. The second epistle of Paul to Timothy, also known as 2 Timothy, is a letter in the New Testament of the Christian Bible, traditionally attributed to the Apostle Paul. It is the last of Paul's letters, and is considered one of the pastoral epistles, which include 1 Timothy and Titus. In this letter, Paul is writing to his young protege Timothy, who is a leader in the early Christian church. Timothy is in Ephesus, a city in present-day Turkey, and Paul is likely writing from prison in Rome. The letter is thought to have been written in the mid-60s AD, near the end of Paul's life. The letter focuses on encouraging and instructing Timothy in his ministry, and includes personal reflections and final instructions from Paul. Some of the key themes of the letter include the importance of sound doctrine, the need for endurance in the face of persecution, the value of Scripture in teaching and training, and the role of leaders in the church. Throughout the letter, Paul emphasizes the need to remain faithful to the gospel and to continue in the truth, despite opposition and difficulty. He urges Timothy to hold fast to his faith, to preach the word of God boldly, and to entrust the gospel to others who will also teach and spread it. Overall, 2 Timothy is a pastoral and encouraging letter, offering guidance and inspiration to Timothy and to all believers who seek to follow Christ faithfully. Description of Paul's warning against false teachers who manipulate doctrine for financial gain. In his letter to Timothy, Paul warned against false teachers who manipulate doctrine for financial gain. He emphasized that such people have a warped understanding of the truth and use it to enrich themselves at the expense of their followers. Paul warns Timothy that these false teachers will try to deceive people and lead them astray with their false teachings, which are motivated by their love of money. They will create their own doctrines and use them to gain control over their followers, using their teachings to manipulate people into giving them money or other material possessions. Paul tells Timothy that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil and that some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. He emphasizes that those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, snare, and many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. Overall, Paul's warning against false teachers who manipulate doctrine for financial gain is a call for Christians to remain vigilant against those who seek to use religion as a means to enrich themselves, and to stay true to the true teachings of the faith. Mention of the Apostle's exhortation to Timothy to teach contentment and godliness. Yes, in addition to warning Timothy about false teachers who manipulate doctrine for financial gain, the Apostle Paul also exhorts Timothy to teach contentment and godliness. In 1 Timothy 6 verses 6 to 8, Paul says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that." Paul emphasizes the importance of being satisfied with what we have and not being greedy for more. He encourages believers to pursue godliness, which is a characteristic of a righteous life, and to find contentment in living a life that is pleasing to God rather than constantly striving for more material possessions. The consequences of the love of money. The consequences of the love of money can be significant and far-reaching, affecting not only the person who is consumed by it but also those around them. Here are some possible consequences. Destructive behavior. People who love money often engage in destructive behavior to get it, such as lying, cheating, and stealing. This can lead to broken relationships and legal consequences. Loss of morality. A person's values and morals can be compromised when they prioritize money over everything else. They may become willing to do things that they know are wrong in order to make more money. Negative impact on relationships. The love of money can cause people to put their financial interests above the needs and well-being of their loved ones. This can lead to strained relationships and even the breakdown of marriages and families. Mental health issues. The pursuit of money can lead to anxiety, stress, and other mental health issues. The pressure to maintain wealth and success can be overwhelming and lead to a sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction. Spiritual harm. The love of money can distract people from their spiritual beliefs and practices, leading to a loss of faith and a lack of concern for others. Discontentment. Ironically, people who love money often find that the more they have, the less satisfied they become. They may constantly strive for more, never feeling like they have enough. Overall, the love of money can lead to a wide range of negative consequences that can have a profound impact on a person's life and the lives of those around them. Examination of how greed drives individuals to commit various crimes. Greed can drive individuals to commit various crimes as they seek to acquire more money and material possessions. One of the most common types of crimes committed due to greed is financial fraud. This can take many forms, such as embezzlement, Ponzi schemes, and insider trading. In cases of embezzlement, an individual misuses funds that have been entrusted to them, such as stealing from their employer or a charitable organization. Ponzi schemes involve promising high returns to investors but instead using the investments of new investors to pay off earlier investors. Insider trading involves using confidential information to make trades on the stock market to gain an unfair advantage. Other crimes driven by greed include robbery, burglary, and theft. These crimes involve taking property or money that does not belong to the perpetrator, often through the use of force or intimidation. In some cases, individuals may even resort to violent crimes, such as murder, in order to acquire wealth. Moreover, the love of money can also lead to corruption, where individuals in positions of power abuse their authority for financial gain. This can occur in politics, business, and other areas of society where there is an opportunity for financial gain through corrupt practices. Corruption can have a devastating effect on society as it undermines the rule of law, erodes trust in institutions, and perpetuates inequality. Overall, the love of money can lead individuals to prioritize wealth above all else, including moral and ethical principles. This can drive individuals to commit various crimes and engage in corrupt practices, ultimately harming both themselves and others. Exploration of the vertical dimension of the love of money as a form of idolatry. The vertical dimension of the love of money refers to the spiritual aspect of this issue. In essence, it is a form of idolatry, which involves placing something other than God at the center of one's life. When an individual becomes obsessed with accumulating wealth, it becomes their primary focus, leading them to make it their ultimate goal and purpose in life. In doing so, they put their trust in money and material possessions rather than in God. This form of idolatry is particularly insidious because it can be subtle and often goes unnoticed. It is easy to become ensnared by the desire for wealth and the lifestyle that it affords. However, in doing so, one risks losing sight of the truly important things in life, such as relationships, spiritual growth, and the pursuit of God's purposes. The Bible teaches that putting anything before God is a form of idolatry, which is a serious sin. In the case of the love of money, this sin can manifest itself in various ways, such as dishonesty, greed, selfishness, and materialism. These attitudes and behaviors are not only harmful to the individual, but can also have a negative impact on those around them. In summary, the love of money as a form of idolatry involves placing money and material possessions at the center of one's life, ahead of God and other important aspects of life. It is a serious sin that can lead to a range of negative consequences, both for the individual and for society as a whole. Discussion of Jesus' teachings on wealth, as well as his encounter with the rich young ruler. Jesus spoke frequently on the subject of wealth and its potential pitfalls. In one well-known example, a wealthy young ruler asked Jesus what he needed to do to inherit eternal life. Jesus replied that he should follow the commandments, to which the young man responded that he had done so since his youth. Jesus then challenged him to sell all his possessions, give to the poor, and follow him. However, the young man was unable to do so and left sorrowful, as he was very rich. This encounter illustrates the tension that can exist between the love of money and one's relationship with God. Jesus emphasized the importance of putting God first and not being attached to material possessions. He taught that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. This does not mean that wealth is inherently evil, but that the love of money can become a stumbling block in one's spiritual journey. Jesus also taught on the importance of using wealth to help those in need. He praised a poor widow who gave all she had, while criticizing those who gave out of their abundance but did not sacrifice anything significant. He emphasized that our attitudes towards wealth and possessions reflect the condition of our hearts, stating that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In summary, Jesus' teachings on wealth emphasize the importance of putting God first and using our resources to help others. He warns against the love of money and the potential for it to become a stumbling block in our spiritual journey. Conclusion. In conclusion, the love of money can lead to various forms of evil and wrongdoing, as stated by the Apostle Paul in his letter to Timothy. It can cause individuals to compromise their morals, manipulate doctrine for financial gain, commit crimes, and even turn to idolatry. Therefore, it is crucial to maintain a healthy perspective on wealth and to seek contentment and godliness, as encouraged by Paul. Additionally, Jesus' teachings on wealth emphasize the importance of using resources for the betterment of others rather than personal gain. The encounter with the rich young ruler highlights the difficulty of giving up worldly possessions and the need to prioritize our relationship with God above material wealth. Ultimately, our perspective on money and possessions should align with biblical teachings, prioritizing the love of God and the love of others above the love of money. Summary of the roots and consequences of the love of money. The love of money is rooted in greed, which can lead to various negative consequences such as the manipulation of doctrine, the commission of crimes, and the prioritization of material possessions over spiritual matters. The Apostle Paul warned against false teachers who use religion for financial gain and urged Timothy to teach contentment and godliness. Jesus also taught on wealth, cautioning against the dangers of putting one's trust in material possessions rather than in God. Ultimately, the love of money is a form of idolatry that can lead individuals away from their spiritual beliefs and towards a life consumed with the pursuit of material gain. Final thoughts on the importance of godliness and contentment over material wealth. So, while money itself is not inherently evil, the love of money can lead to a variety of negative consequences and behaviors. The love of money can lead individuals to prioritize wealth above all else, including their relationships with others and their own sense of morality. This can lead to greed, fraud, and other forms of criminal behavior. Additionally, the love of money can become a form of idolatry, taking the place of God in an individual's life. Instead, it is important to prioritize godliness and contentment over material wealth. This means recognizing that true fulfillment and happiness cannot be found in money or possessions, but rather in our relationships with God and others. It means being content with what we have and striving for a life of integrity and righteousness, rather than seeking after wealth at all costs. Ultimately, while money can be a useful tool, it is important to keep our priorities in check and not let the love of money take over our lives. As Jesus himself said, "What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul?" Matthew 16 verse 26, NIV. In this episode, we have explored the love of money and its negative consequences. We began by examining the Apostle Paul's warning to Timothy about false teachers who manipulate doctrine for financial gain. We also discussed the consequences of greed and how it drives individuals to commit various crimes. Furthermore, we delved into the vertical dimension of the love of money as a form of idolatry. We examined how Jesus taught on wealth and his encounter with the rich young ruler. Throughout this episode, we emphasized the importance of godliness and contentment over material wealth. We highlighted Paul's exhortation to Timothy to teach contentment and godliness, and we discussed Jesus' teachings on the issue. The love of money is a powerful force that can cause people to act in ways they would not otherwise. It is a root of all kinds of evil and can lead to many negative consequences, including crime, corruption, and loss of relationships. However, by cultivating godliness and contentment, we can avoid the pitfalls of the love of money and focus on what truly matters. As we close this episode, we encourage you to reflect on your relationship with money. Are you seeking it as an end in itself, or are you using it as a means to accomplish good? We encourage you to practice contentment and to consider how you can cultivate godliness in your daily life. By doing so, you can avoid the negative consequences of the love of money and live a fulfilling life that honors God. Here are some practical applications that we can consider. Evaluate your relationship with money. Are you pursuing it at all costs, or are you content with what you have? Focus on your values and relationships. Prioritize your moral principles and the people you care about over financial gain. Reflect on your goals and motivations. Are they driven by the love of money, or are they aligned with your values and purpose? Finally, seek contentment and godliness. Cultivate a sense of gratitude for what you have, and strive to live a life of integrity and purpose. Thank you for joining us today and listening to the podcast, and we hope you found this episode insightful and gained some valuable insights into the relationship between money and morality.